Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tree Actions, the Human Forestry Podcast. And with me, as always, is my trusted companion, counterpart, Tony Trestle. Tony?
Morning, everyone. Good morning.
It is morning here. And joining us today, I was going to ask from where, and I forgot to do that, but joining us nonetheless is Rebecca Siebel from...
I live in the Driftless region of western Wisconsin.
Did you say Driftless?
Driftless,
wow.
Yes.
That sounds like something interesting to talk about right there.
It is very interesting.
And we have a couple of things and just before the show we were going to chat about that I think we'll get to, but to really get us rolling, we have to start the show. We don't have to, but I like to start the show with one question that we ask all our guests. And that is this. Would you share with us, please, the first memory that you have of connecting with a tree or trees?
I surely can. And so I grew up in Two Rivers, Wisconsin, which is right on Lake Michigan.
Okay.
And in our backyard, we had three notable trees. And in hindsight, I know that two of them were probably were either big gray dogwoods, something like that with the white berries. And I don't really know because I was a kid. But they weren't very big. But they were just far enough apart so that when we were playing in the backyard, if I put a hand and a foot here and a hand and a foot here, I could shimmy my way up as far as I could get, up those two, presumably some kind of dogwood trees. And the other one was a big weeping willow in back of the garage. And there was no pruning at our house. So we would take my neighbor kids, friends and I, probably my brother, and we'd we'd take a chunk of leaves, strip them all off, twist them together, and then swing from over there to over there and yell, see who could get the most out of it.
Tarzan.
So in both cases, we were, playing in the trees. The trees were the fun. They were the main attraction.
Wow. So that's a pretty quick and powerful memory. You obviously must have done it quite a lot.
Yeah. Well, what's cool is it's the physicality of climbing trees, but just horsing around as a kid.
Yeah. It's funny how many of our guests, that their story goes to a childhood place, and then how far back it goes, and how often it is as children. And funny, some that are either raised in the woods or near woods, and then those that aren't really, but they find the woods or the places of nature in their childhoods. So you had these trees in your yard.
We did, but it was, we were in the city, this big city of Two Rivers, which is to say not very big. And it wasn't a dead end street, but we were very close to Lake Michigan, and there was a empty lots at the end of the street, big prairie grasses. And we also spent a lot of time horsing around there, but so not in the country.
No,
but country enough.
But nevertheless, your memories of the trees, or at least that memories of and involving trees, which isn't city really. But Two Rivers just doesn't sound like the name of a city that would ever be big.
No. There's the East Twin and the West Twin River, and there they join.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two Rivers. Interesting. I noticed our guests that are listening can't see this because we don't use our video for the podcast, but I noticed on your name that you had put the name that you had Roxy in the middle of Rebecca Siebel. So, and that being my sister's name immediately made me curious. So,
Yeah.
I'm still curious because I asked you about it, and Tony wanted to wait. Let's put it on the show. So, everyone,
Sure.
how is it you got Roxy in your name?
Well, there's no Roxy or Roxanne in my name. It's just Rebecca Ann Sieble.
Okay.
But years ago, when I first started in the industry, I worked in the field briefly for Rainbow Tree Care Company in Minneapolis. And then I did move to consulting and sales pretty quickly for Rainbow. And there was a guy named Travis Hurt who was on the cruise, and he's an effervescent kind of guy. And his crew was doing work that I had sold on one day, and we had a big meeting room that was divided into the veal fattening pens, as Doug Copeland says, the cubicles. So there were about 10 of us arborists in there, sales arborists. And so I could only see into the middle of the room, and it was the end of the day, and I was at my desk working feverishly. And Travis jumped around the edge of my cubicle and, did like this and said, Roxy, and then proceeded to tell me about the work that they had done. And that was it. It kind of became a little bit of a climbing name. So only a few people within that company knew of it. And then particularly Mark Preskrat that we mentioned
Right.
East Coast, my East Coast group. For some reason, Roxy really took hold with that group. I think I had it written inside of my helmet. And and so the East Coast group, the New England Arbos, and the Women's Tree Climbing Workshop, all those people, they just called me Roxy, which was awesome. And then this book, so we'll probably talk a little bit about this, Take to the Trees, if you want. But in this book, it's written by a woman who attended one of the women's tree climbing workshops.
Okay, Margaret.
And
Marguerite Holloway, right?
Marguerite Holloway.
Okay.
And as climbing experiences go and weekends in the woods go, it does a little bit of a dog leg on your life, right? Makes a little left turn or right turn. And Marguerite started coming to a couple more workshops, and because she's a journalist, scientific writer, that's where she went. And so over the course of a couple of years, she wrote this book, which is partially about tree climbing. Tree climbing is the vehicle, but the book is a lot about differences in climate that we're seeing as relates to trees, tree species, insects that affect trees, wildfires that affect trees, from aspen in Colorado to hemlock on the East Coast. But it's interwoven with her experience actually physically climbing in the trees. And the point of my story is that she knows me as Roxy. Okay. So when she mentions the things that I'm sharing with her in the book, she calls me Roxy.
Wow.
And now...
Well, it's interesting that you obviously like it, and because you kind of adopted it and you've made it your own.
Yeah, it's kind of fun because much like Travis did that first time, people are you say, "Hey, Roxy," it's like it's automatically some kind of fun. You're like I'm okay with that. It's good.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, it's not really that common, and it isn't that uncommon in my world because I grew up with a sister. Her name is actually Roxanne, but we always, to this day, everyone just calls her Roxy, right? And do you remember, well, of course you all know this song. It came out in the 80s, I think, or 70s. No, it would have been the 80s. And she was really young, and I would sing it in the car when it would come on the radio, and she would get so mad. But the Roxy Roller song, because that's a cool, funky song too. With I don't know if there's a few there. Roxy Roller, that song. I can't really sing it.
Oh no, sing
more. You don't know the song
Roxy
it was a hit in the 80s. I can't remember the band, might have been One Hit Wonder, but it's a really cool song. Like it's not like Turn on the Red Light like the Police song, which is a little bit more risque. This is more just
Yeah.
fun, right? Roxy, Roxy Roller. That's how it goes. Yeah, it's really cool. I can't. Oh wow, I got to
Definitely. I probably know it. I probably
Yeah,
know it.
yeah. You just don't know it because I'm ruining it.
Right.
um, that's awesome. Well, thank you for telling us how you adopted the name Roxy, and it is a
For
cool
sure.
name, and I think my sister likes it too. Um, you mentioned your cubicles and rainbow. I think it was rainbow. You said.
Yeah.
So how did your journey from swinging like Tarzan and Jane in
Mm,
the trees in your yard take you into doing tree work? Because there's, obviously most of us end up by accident some way in this business. So
yeah.
how did your journey go?
Yeah. It's a good question, and I do think a lot of people do end up inadvertently uh, in this career, which I think helps us as a community
Mm.
because we want to be there. You want to be there. So my degree is in biology, and I was, like I said, I was working for Rainbow in the Twin Cities, and I kind of did opposite of what a lot of people do. Is instead of working, say, from the ground up and then going into sales and retiring to the bucket or whatever people do. It's a lot of different paths, and I worked in the field just briefly, and then I went into sales. Then I started my own company, did that for 10 years, and during that time of starting my own company, I had been up in the tree once with Chad Bry at Rainbow, um, and then not until even later, owning my own company, did I get to climb a little bit. So I did kind of opposite of most people, which is I had
Ah,
the background and
yeah, yeah.
in sales, and then started climbing, and then
Interesting.
sold that business to Bartlett. And then oh man, that first day I remember, I worked for Bartlett for 6 or 7 years, and I remember just coming home and just feeling I'm done. Like I don't have to take calls, I don't have to do proposals, I don't have to
Yeah,
do client anything. I just worked all day. I climbed trees, did good work, had fun.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of I've heard that from a few people that have sold their business right after. Obviously, you don't just up and sell your business without building a successful business. So therefore, you've done a lot of work to get there, right? And even not necessarily done the work in order to sell, but at one point you realize this opportunity exists, and you're like, you know what, this actually might even be okay. And then have the exact sentiment that you just communicated, where it's like, wow, I don't have to, I don't have to, I don't have to.
Yeah, yeah, and that was nice. And then there was a point in my life where I didn't want to be in the city anymore, and so then it's kind of coming back around full circle now as I left the city and moved to a little off-grid cabin in the woods for about, I guess, about a year and a half, um, and worked for a small family-owned tree company here in the Driftless region, and then found myself working a little bit more and more for Women's Tree Climbing Workshop, and then some on-site stuff for North American Training Solutions, and that's
Mhm.
where we
Yeah,
first met
yeah,
in
yeah.
there. And moving full time into that, and now I'm back into doing my own thing and trying to tend to take the off-grid cabin in the woods, the free time, working with and for people, for myself, and smash it all into something that works.
The first time we met was actually at the comps.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
We got
Yes.
to know each other more at Hume, right? I have my Hume
Yes.
mug today, but the first time, more than a couple comps. Anyway, you went to the national a couple times at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I was I think I was rescue judge probably at that time or something. So, you know, as much interaction as a rescue judge can have with a competitor is all I had, but
Right.
then a little bit
Right.
afterwards, you know, and so on. You know, where did that fit into your alchemy of change? The tree climbing comps.
Oh, there was, besides the nerves, there's never a bad moment at any of the tree climbing competitions. And even when things don't go well, or you've got a glitch, a glitch in the rules or something, just, yeah, you brought the energy. Tony, you did a lot of time up at the top of trees, work climb, head tech, and Colin Bugg said at one of the Wisconsin comps, if you don't win, you learn.
Right.
So are you really ever losing? You're really not.
No, no.
And I first did the Minnesota, right? I lived at that time in Minneapolis, Minnesota comp. I was already old. I was an old climber. I was in my mid to late 30s. And when I started working for Bartlett and climbing full time in the field, I was, I think, 39. So, and I was athletic growing up, but maybe if I had started when I was 20, different story. But for me, it was more, I love this. I love the people. I'm not expecting to win, but I am expecting to punch down some walls for the women who come after me. And, hopefully I think Minnesota has 5 or 6 women now regularly. And at times there have been more. So, hopefully that did a little bit to just normalize the females at the competitions.
And what year was that when you started?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I don't remember. It would have been
the first time I went to internationals was 2009 in Providence, Rhode Island, I think it was. I started, my first competition that I did was in 2006 when the internationals was in Minneapolis, and
right.
Man, I was so nervous. I barely, I climbed like once a month at that point. I was just starting. So for all you climbers out there who don't know what you're doing, yep.
Climbing's a dance you learn as you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a lot like that. It's like the game of pinball. It's like you're never gonna have the same game twice.
No.
You're never gonna climb the same tree twice. Never. How beautiful is that?
I think it's one of the very unique things about that competition. And I mean, I think there's a few like it. Like I got to by coincidence, watch the World Surfboard Championships one time in Hawaii. I was coming back from a conference in New Zealand, and we were like stopped down in Honolulu, and my family went with me, and so on. So we started to stay, and it happened to be the week of the International Surfboard Championships, and there we are watching this take place, and it reminded the first time I'd ever seen an event that I thought, wow, this is a lot like the tree climbing competition, because there was the world champion. I was talking to him on the Saturday, and he was sitting there telling me what's going on, and we're standing on the sand, and then they're like, hey, they call his name, and he's like, I say, hey, I got to go. And he goes, and I see him getting interviewed by these like big sportscasts because he was the defending champ, and he was just chatting with me, like, which would totally happen at a tree climbing comp, right? And he's explaining what the event is and what the surfers are out there doing, but they also have these random weird things that can occur, like they're dealing with the ocean and the waves, and I thought, man, what a neat thing. So I think there are others like it, but getting back to the tree climbing competition, it is so dynamic and can be so varying. Like we try our best, obviously, as when you're a judge and a tech to set the event up so it's fair and the same, but it's still it's still tree climbing. You got knots, hitches, you got rope wrapped around rope, and you got friction points, and you got to move. Like there's so many things that can happen. It can rain a little. You could have to go first. Someone broke a branch off 3 climbs ago. Like it's just wild, and you just never really do know for sure. Yeah, it's what kind of makes it cool.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always, probably my worst event was Belade Speed Climb. Again, I started climbing when I was in my late 30s. But I loved it. I loved Belade Speed Climb. And I always, you get down from Belade Speed Climb and get down and you're just, exhausted, wrecked. You left it all in the tree and you're like,
Yeah.
could I just do it one more time? Could I? Because now I got this tree's number.
Yeah.
Now I know, but you don't really.
No,
This is fun.
you could probably do best of 3 and it may or may not get any better.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah. It's those of you listening, if you've never been to one, if you ever find out when one's close by, even if it's a regional comp or an international comp, it's worth going to the park and walking around and having a look because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sure is.
Now you mentioned it earlier, and you mentioned it again, and I don't want to lose this because it piqued my curiosity, and maybe it has some of our listeners. But you mentioned Driftless, Wisconsin.
Yes.
Now, I've not heard that term before, so maybe someone else hasn't either.
Yeah. So the area in which I live, we're in a small town north of La Crosse, which is in itself not a big town, but it's east of the Mississippi River, in about an hour or so half hour from Minnesota. So there's an area of the country, southeastern Minnesota, western and southwestern Wisconsin, a little tip of northwestern Illinois, and then a section of northeastern Iowa. And this whole region is known as the Driftless region. And it is so named because in the last glacial age, the glaciers did not scour this area, so they stopped. And a lot of the other parts of Wisconsin did have glacial, events. And so this region has got a lot of really distinctive geological features. And I'm going from a lot of my grade school stuff here, but eskers and valleys. And there's a Fountain City, Minnesota is the sinkhole capital of the world. So there's all these underground caverns. There's limestone, and then you'll see farmers' fields, and then there's a big clump of trees in the middle. And a curious person might ask, well, why didn't they plant that? And the reason is because there's a big sinkhole right there, and maybe an underground cavern, and maybe an underground river even. And I only found this out, fairly recently. There's a great documentary called, I want to say it's Decoding the Driftless, public television, and it's fascinating about the geological history. And then we've got trout streams, we've got the bluffs on the river. It's a really unique, it's a beautiful area. A lot of rolling hills and valleys, and and then we're on the Mississippi River, so it's a major flyway for migrating birds.
So driftless refers to the fact that it wasn't grated or plowed or drifted
Right.
by
No glacial drift.
The bottom of an iceberg didn't grind over top of it.
Right.
Which I guess
so there's a lot of rubble.
They must call that drifting then, I guess. I never thought of that. Maybe it must be. If it's driftless.
Glacial drift.
Glacial drift. Interesting. It reminds me.
Go ahead. No. It's also a cool region. There's a little bit of a back to earth, homesteading, organic farming kind of area.
Kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like it's not that far from Two Rivers, or in its kind of locate, either maybe not geographically, but in its demographically.
Well, I don't know. Two Rivers is on the extreme eastern coast, so that's the flatland over there.
Okay. So you've gone a bit into the, but in a way, you've it's been a bit of a circle. It's interesting.
Yeah. I lived for a while when I was in graduate school down south in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But like a lot of people, you go back home. Um, yeah, Wisconsin is home for me. I love the seasons. I'm not a huge fan of winter, but I'm a fan of winter.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally relate. There is definitely a beauty in seasonality, like the change of seasons, and like, it's just hit full swing here. It's June now, and I just the other day I was because we walk the valley regularly where we live, and like the stark difference from December 1st to June 1st, like it's like pretty radically different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the
Well,
phases in
you're up
between.
there.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's right now is lush and is green, and it's just beautiful. But it's hard to imagine. But it's yeah. But it is cold, and yeah, I get it. I relate. When you were talking about Driftless, that reminds me of something because I wonder how many places there are that haven't been affected by glaciers, and there's probably lots in the world, and that's another topic. But is that how many unique, cool places there are all over this planet, and everywhere that in my travels taken me to quite a few, not even close to all that there are, but I always find it fascinating when there's really cool, often geographical type things. It might be caves, might be mountains, might be hills, might be valleys, might be a spring, might be rivers, but something that people are drawn to, and they hang out there, they go there, they love it. It's more than just a place. Like there's a spirituality to it, and it's
Yes.
just fascinating to me how it must be innate in humans for us to find these, because everywhere I go, people. Well, I got to remember, I'm always usually rubbing elbows with arborists too, so I think that may be
Yes.
part of it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But here in the Kananaskis is the Highwood Pass. It's an intercontinental divide, and there's a hiking trail you can go up where the peaks of the mountains, and you can hike right up to them, were never covered by the glacial ice. So they were above the
Oh,
ice through the whole ice age. And there's very few places in the world that are like that. So
right.
they didn't, and so there's little stuff growing and things up there that were all by themselves during the ice age. They never got iced, which is kind of in a way is similar, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah, it
made me
is.
think of that. It'd be so cool. It's just kind of a different extreme, right?
Yep.
But it just reminded
Yeah.
me of that. So,
Yeah. No,
so
I
did
think you're
you? How
right.
did you find it? Did you just like what? Were you drawn there? Do you like? Can you think back energetically how you got there?
Oh, well, I sure can. We'd gone on a trip to Costa Rica,
Ah,
and just trust me on this, it comes back to the
oh,
Driftless.
good.
But I had it was an unusual trip. Had an agenda, no agenda, and I found myself going on two different horseback rides. And I said to myself when I got back, which is why am I, or maybe when I was on the horse in Costa Rica, is why am I not doing more of this? Like I love this. I love the horses. I love the connection. Riding, sure, but it's not loud. It's not like a chipper or chainsaw, which are fun in their own rights. Uh, and so I had a friend who worked at Bartlett who owned a boarding stable. And then she turned me on to these horses that were available. And it was kind of a, well, you know, screw it moment. And I bought a horse. I said to myself, what's the worst thing I could do? I'll lose X amount of dollars, and then years later, I'm all in on horses.
Wow.
But so through the horses, it led to, well, I'm going to have my horses at this family place in the Driftless region, and then I had the little cabin, and then it became like, well, every Thursday at Bartlett, I was packed up my Saab wagon, and I had everything in there. And as soon as work was done, I'd go home, pick up the dog, and I just couldn't wait to get back to the cabin. So eventually, where my horse was, all the things,
Yeah.
the things that are not things. They are the heart and soul of you. And so then it just became. I remember turning the key at the house in Minneapolis and saying, I don't ever need to come back here. And everything that's here, I don't need. I only need the stuff that's over there, which are not stuff. So, so then I was hooked, and I really enjoy this region, and made a home here. And that first horse has sadly has passed on, but I've got 2 horses now. And,
So are they quarters or the special breed or?
yeah, a quarter horse mare, chestnut mare.
Oh, nice.
For
Yeah.
anyone who's the redheads,
Yeah. Yeah.
for anyone who knows that the redheads got the special something. And Truant horses as well. And then I've got a 5-year-old leopard Appaloosa.
Oh, wow.
So
An appy. Nice.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, we had horses. I grew up on a farm kind of ranch. I spent a bit of time on horses and had horses. And then Nance and I had horses, until we moved to Olds, but we haven't had them for a long time, but we're definitely in our background,
yeah,
and they're cool things.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's that connection. It's a lot like being in the tree, and it can get kind of philosophical here. Is when you're in the tree, you're physically connected,
Mm-hmm.
either touching it or through a rope to
Mm-hmm.
the ground, to the earth. And
Yeah.
when you're on a horse, you're physically connected to the being, and then to the earth.
Yeah.
It's not like driving in a car.
No. It. I've been listening to your stories as you've been talking, and I've noticed like you respond to change, and you're sensitive to what you feel. And like, is that always been? It seems that way to me, and I'm asking, I guess, if that's, or is it something that you've grown into because you seem to follow your heart and listen to your energy, and that's something that a lot of people I think would like to learn about. Uh, it's not everyone finds that. How can you talk a bit about that that celestial journey? Because it is something like that's pretty big stuff if you're willing.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for that, Dwayne. I am a work in progress. Uh, I think I'm more in tune, more and more in tune. But it's not easy. And yeah, some years ago, I learned that just because you spend time on something or put something into a relationship, or whatever it is, that pretty good might be good enough, and also it could be trash. And so why would you hang on to trash? And trash doesn't mean it's worthless. Whatever that means, just let go of let go of that bad idea. And that was hard for me because I grew up in a German Catholic family. And so loyalty and, the rules are not, it's kind of like the ANSI standards. You might have the standards and then you got your own standards. So if you're German Catholic, you got the Bible and then you got your own standards. And my family wasn't super religious by any means. But there's that, we came from Mennonites way back. There's that internal work ethic and above and beyond, like that integrity of do what's right. What's the right thing, even if it's 1,000 times harder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, kind of like tree climbers, a little bit of masochism in there, but it's okay because I'm doing it. And so it took me a while, I think, and it was through horses, actually. It was learning to not just do what I was expected to do, but to say, oh, is that good for me? Is that right for me? And even though everything is good, is it good for me? And yeah, that's a hard skill to learn, and it's a real gift to be able to pass it along to young people.
Yeah, especially with a background, and I don't know that we've ever talked about this, but it's something that And I don't think I've heard you use the word Mennonite before. I don't remember if you have, but I was
No.
raised that way, right? I was raised,
Oh,
I never even spoke English till I was 6. I spoke Low German, right?
oh wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and it's in, I would say the last probably 10 years, 15 years, but really in the last 3, 5 to even in the last 6 months. And like when you mentioned a progress, I like that term. I like to think of progress rather than perfection, like letting go of expectations and, like not only expectations that I have of myself, but expectations that I think others have, that I think others have. I need to clarify that. Right. And some of it, realizing where it comes from, realizing or understanding. And I think that that's important, and you have to give, I don't know, I'm going to use the word homage, like to the fact that this, and maybe I'm going to use another word like programming, what you learned and how you learned these things that you judge yourself by, where they came from and their origins lie. And, that's where I've, I think I've gained an understanding between religion and spirituality. Maybe I could use those terms. I don't think they're the same thing. And I never understood that for a long time. And that caused a lot of strife and angst that I didn't even really know where it came from. I don't know. Does that resonate? Make sense?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah. You got, yeah. When you think about it, you're the only one. You're the only being walking on the planet who's got your mind, body, soul, and spirit all in one place. And organizations, family, everyone else has got kind of one of those on their agenda. Yeah, resonates for sure.
Yeah, I
So,
think accepting and learning to accept others where they're at without judgment too, for me, has been a big part of it to get that peace. Like
yeah,
to well, and judgment's a whole nother, that's a whole nother realm, right? Like and what goes with that, that because that's where kind of the resentment and guilt and expectations even comes from. They're tied together, right? But
yeah,
and knowing what you're in control of, right? Like you said, like what works for you or what, and not at the expense of others, just at, and harmony. You use the word harmony, or in tune. You said in tune, when everybody's in tune or things are in tune. And I think it starts with being in tune with yourself, and then with your um, spirit of, that something other than ourselves,
yes, yeah.
and those aligning somehow. And, horses are just
Alignment.
absolutely sentient, I think. Like, I mean, they look at you, they talk to you, I mean, they have such personalities and they have attitudes. Like, talk about expectations.
Yeah,
We had a horse that
they're
when you were late, he would bang on the floor, right? Like, because it was feed, and when he wanted his hay and his oats. And if he didn't get the boat, and it like he had grace, like he'd have maybe half an hour on either side. But if it was outside of that, and it would get progressively worse till he'd be kicking the stall like with his foot, like bang, 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 like what the hell is going on? And then he'd be snarky too. Like if you were late, then he'd be pissy, because he'd
yes.
he'd be
Oh,
he'd hold a
yes.
grudge, and he'd finally get over it and everything else. But like, there's not a lot of animals that do that. Like dogs forgive pretty quickly. Horses, they a little more expectation there.
I agree. When I've been traveling for training gigs and you come back, it's always that first like, well, all right,
Yeah,
I guess we're good, but we're really not for the
yeah,
first 5 minutes because I've been here and you've been somewhere else.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
no, they're fantastic, and the trainer I worked with is in Florida. Her name is Caroline Best, Beste, and she really, the spirituality is a big component of how she uh, her training program. And one of the things they say is if you're not in alignment, you're not going to get a 1,200-pound animal to go with you. Like, not going to happen. So get your stuff straight, and that's kind of like teaching. Authenticity. We're preaching to the crowd here, preaching to the choir, but
We're talking to each. I think we all understand that, but when if someone didn't understand something about that, well, how would you introduce that to them? Like understanding that concept, like I mean, like you said, we're at the choir. I mean, I don't know how many. We have quite a few listeners now. What do you mean by that? Don't like if you're able. I'm putting you on the
sure.
spot, of course, but hey, it's fun. I'm really curious how you'd answer it, right?
I'm good for it, Dwayne. Yeah, I think it's does it pass the sniff test? I do not know everything. I am not the best climber. I am not the best rigger. I am not the best, crane removal person. I'm not the best rope tire, knot tire. I mean, whatever. I'm not the world champion of any of those things. But I got stuff. I got things that are worth passing along. I've earned some of it the hard way, and I've um, and I think my experience is valuable in a way if someone wants to receive it. So I think that kind of alignment for me, and then also the authenticity. Like I want to help someone. I want to pass this along because it's cool and it's fun, and isn't it you know isn't it great to be able to have this skill and this confidence and have fun while you're doing the hard stuff. But if it doesn't pass the sniff test, they are not going to sign up, and they shouldn't. And I tell people too, like, don't trust me, don't trust everything. It might not work for you. Um, and I think once you maybe come down a little bit from a pulpit kind of thing, since we're in the religious scheme, uh, once you come down from it, then people realize we're like each other. We're a lot more alike, and especially in the tree community, we gravitate towards a lot of similar things, and what's important. So
I think it's in humanity in general. I'm starting to wonder or think or believe maybe, but that we are all a lot more similar than different. There's a lot more similarities than differences, and I think if we can focus on those as
yeah,
people, whether you're tree people or arborists or just in general, I think you get it's just a lot better way to go. Because it's easy to find differences. It's not necessarily as easy to find similarities. Although when you teach yourself to look for them, they're quite easy to find. And
yeah,
imagine I've tried and I've been challenged by some teachers to assume that everyone's coming from the best place they know. Like just to give them that benefit, and that might not mean they're doing something good, but it's the best they know. Like it's just what they know. It's where they're at in their journey, and it doesn't mean I have to align with it. It doesn't mean I even have to agree, but I don't have to fight it or resist it or take offense to it. It's just they're doing the best they know, which is an interesting kind of way to look at things. Tony, it makes me think a little bit of your um, dedication to focusing on living in abundance. I think I'm not sure exactly how you use the word abundance. Maybe does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a long time, well, the thing is you can have a scarcity mindset or an abundance
Yeah,
mindset, right?
yeah.
So in a scarcity mindset would say that, there's only so much. I have to get as much as I can, because if I don't have enough, I'll run out. And so I have to get more than you if I want more. Whereas an abundance mindset is like some things are limitless, right? And there's always enough to go around. And when I started to understand that the scarcity mindset was putting a lot of pressure on myself for no reason, and started to adopt more of an abundance mindset. Now it's like I would see things as a competition in my own mind. Like when I wrote a book, if only 10 people wrote it, or read the book, I somehow lost. But it wasn't about people reading the book. For an author, it was about me writing the book. So, or when I, look at business competition, right? Like, oh, there's somebody else in the area that's doing safety and training. It's like, I would see the old version of me would see that as almost a threat or a competition. The new version's like, hey, if they're better than me, they're better than me. I'm going to keep doing what I do. And actually, quite honestly, in this industry, the more safety and training we have out there that's decent, probably the better off we are.
Mm-hmm.
So just looking at things life is not a zero-sum game. When it comes to, if you want to live it with value, it ultimately you live and you die. It is zero-sum. But I don't remember being born and I'm not dead yet. So I have to deal with what's in between. And I found it, I think that I inherited that scarcity mindset from my parents a little bit, who probably inherited it from their parents and came down. And I think that, what I always thought was my father's work ethic was probably really more of a coping mechanism. Like, because when he was challenged in life, he just worked harder, right? And there's nothing wrong with hard work. But it took me quite a while to adopt an abundance mindset. And then to be, just because I'm not doing anything doesn't mean nothing's getting done. Like there's things happening. I'm just working on it. So forcing myself to slow up. And the side benefit is sometimes just people think I'm dim-witted and slow, and that's okay because the bar's low and I don't have to perform that well.
Well, I don't know that I don't view it as a low bar personally. Like I think you've the bar is actually appropriately high or set right. Like maybe it's not even there because it's not a competition. I think what I notice is a peace with yourself. And when you can have that, when you can there's two things. Peace with yourself and love yourself. Like, believe it or not, those two things are huge. Like, and not that easy. I mean, not that easy to think at least it wasn't for me. And I've even noticed it since you've adopted this, Tony, and working with you the last few years, like it's changed that. It seems to have changed that. I haven't asked you directly how much you love yourself, but that's part of what happens, right? When you and again, and it's along the line of acceptance and the whole abundance thing, and not judging as well. It's really interesting, which at least for my Mennonite upbringing, it wasn't that there was judgment. It was such a big part of it, and yet so stealthily disguised as righteousness. I don't know if you did you find that, Roxy?
Well, yeah, I think, and the Catholic upbringing and in German, my nephew, who's he's brilliant, and he's a history buff, not just a history buff. He's delved into our family history a lot, and so when I say a Mennonite background, that's probably 3 or 4 generations ago. Tracing, say, our origins and our family origins were displaced because they just wanted freedom to live, so they had to move.
Yeah.
But for myself, being raised Catholic, it's everywhere. It's insidious. It's unconscious, subconscious. It's unspoken, silently judged.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that as rules. But I think sometimes it harms rather than hurts, or harms rather than does.
Well, I think for me, one of the worst things it did, well, I don't know if that's the right term to put on it. I don't want to put it on, but what happened to me was I got a view of, I guess I'll use the word God, that inhibited my ability to connect to spirituality. Because I felt that God was more, I remember listening to people here that God was, well, you'd hear God is love, God is this, but when I realized later in life, like God to me was more punishing or judgmental, right? Like there was like he's watching me do all this bad stuff that I can't seem to stop, right? Which is a really weird way to, and analyzing how I got to that place of that thinking, right? And realizing how subconscious it was, a default way of thinking. And then bringing consciousness to it has allowed me to gain some freedom from it. But again, I'll use your word of progress, progressing to that.
Yeah.
And that's, I know it's in the Catholic Church, it's like that too. A lot of what I have friends that call themselves recovering Catholics.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there is a difference between the religion and God, or the spirituality, like we said earlier, right? And when those get muddled, that's when it gets confusing.
I think the best way I ever saw it explained, I saw a sign on the wall of a rehab. It said, religion is for people that fear hell. Spirituality is for people that have been there.
Ooh.
And that kind of changed my thinking on the whole thing. Because I was raised, my parents were Catholic as well, and I was raised that way. I went to Catholic school through 8th grade. But it never, like, I'm not a church-going person now, and it was always a bone of contention, especially with my mother. And it was, I think my father always felt a little bit of disappointment because he never passed that on. But it just, I never needed that to find what I needed from that realm of life. Was, that, well, I sit in a church and wish I was somewhere else when I could just be somewhere else. So that was kind of, but I don't regret it. I think that, it gave me a framework upon which to work off of and base things. So it's fine. I don't fault anybody for a religious belief or going to church. In some ways I admire it. I won't say envy it, but in some ways I admire it. It's something I could never quite pull off from a structure and a schedule standpoint. But it's, and it comes to what Dwayne was saying earlier, that acceptance and not judgment. Whatever gets you through without hurting somebody else, who am I to judge that? Because I don't want your judgment on me and how I get through it. It's my show. What do we say here in Pennsylvania? Not your pig, not your farm, right? Not your cow, not your farm.
Yeah.
Well, like we said, Roxy, we go down interesting roads. We've honestly
Right.
never, for whatever reason, I don't think we've ever broached the religion veil on the show as yet. So
that's how these things go.
But I have to say, I sensed there's a spiritual aura that I see, right early on in our conversation, and and listening to your journey, and it's like you've been seeking truth, and truth for yourself. Even your pursuit of the tree climbing competition, you talked about smashing down walls. Like, you've been fighting for a type of freedom, it feels like to me. And you found it. Like, you seem to have found it. Like, you've found it, and the horses have really helped you discover some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so far so good, right?
So can you, is that in line? Does that resonate, or is that kind of what's been
no, that really does. Because so when Tony was talking, it occurred to me that one of the things when you talks about abundance is, do you have enough? Like, I have enough, and also I can do without. So there's no, say, bread in the house. This is not for me, living in our world. That's not going to be a deal breaker. I don't need to get all bent out of shape. The things that get me bent out of shape now are, do I have space, like you mentioned? Do I have space to... Creativity is a big thing for me, and creativity can be art. It can be art like photography. It can be cooking. It can be building something with metal. And that space is so... like, to defend that creativity space is really important to me. And how do you do that? Well, you have to have the means to be able to step back. So I've got enough, as long as I don't have too much on my plate, and I can do without stuff. It always bugs me when we talk about we don't have enough resources. Like, that is just complete and utter bullshit. We just use them too much. We just talk about driving less before we talk about a better car. That maybe that's my Mennonite past right there. Is
maybe.
Yeah. Could we? There's probably a simpler way, and what will get you? It'll get you surfing. The cultures, they say the Polynesian culture, that's how they invented surfing, because they finally had peace and prosperity and free time, and then they stick a wood board on the waves and say, how cool is that?
Wow.
So if they didn't have space and creativity, then surfing wouldn't exist.
Huh.
Maybe.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and you know, that's another major way. That's a connecting with nature, with the earth, right? Like
Yeah.
you know, surfing's pretty connective, you know, and there's,
Yeah.
I mean, I love being in the ocean. I don't know, there's a lot, you know, ocean is one of those things that is kind of like trees, like there's a major draw. It's a major
Yeah.
draw and a connection there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, water, I guess, in general, like lakes,
Yeah.
rivers,
Water. Yeah.
you know, there's a powerful, like a element, almost like an element, you know. I don't, trees aren't considered an element, I guess, but you know, fire, water, air,
Yeah.
trees.
I wonder if they should be. Isn't the Chinese calendar is like wood dragon? Is to I think we're in the year of the wood dragon.
Really?
So maybe I
Could
think it's
be.
the wood dragon. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool.
But yeah, trees. I mean, they got water in them, so that's cool.
They got everything.
I hadn't realized how much the being an arborist and climbing trees allowed me, you know, doing that every day when I was a production arborist, how much it rewarded, how much it satisfied my creativity. Because I've always, you know, for years and years, like the first book I wrote, it took me 10 years, right? Like to actually publish the thing. But I always feel frustrated with myself because I come up at the end of the day, I'm like, ain't happening today. But when I stopped doing production work day to day, then I needed to find other creative pursuits. And it didn't occur to me for like another 10 years that it's like, shit, for me, working in a tree or doing the work was a creative
Yes.
process for me. Just pruning was creative. Even removals were creative. Like it just, I missed it. And then I also found more of a need to meditate when I wasn't climbing every day because I wasn't getting that flow time, right? That, you know, that just, I'm doing this and I'm proficient at it. Now my mind is kind of working on other things as well too. And I'd have to find that. So I hadn't realized how much, you know, arboriculture gave that to me. I guess other people get it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true. That would be an interesting question to add to your 2 questions you ask everyone is the creativity, because it is, yeah, it's like pinball. It is really not the same climb ever, and if you're pruning, you're leaving. That's your signature, your legacy.
Yeah. Well, I often do ask people if they have drawn, you know, life lessons or parallels in life from their time with trees or from observing trees. You know, getting, you know, kind of part of the reason for the name, right? The Human Forest, the Human Forestry podcast of Tree Action. Like, has the human forest, or has the forest or trees taught you things that you've, you know, that has affected how you live or how you interact in life? Would you say?
Ooh, what a great question that is. I think I'll say first that the tree people, the community, I've always felt that I can be myself in that community. And again, maybe that's timing, but I think it's a lot to do with the people who are generally pretty grounded and in touch. So that's been very important to me. And I remember, you know, when I became friends with Melissa Levangie way back, and then to be in the competition circuit, that I really have never felt like I have to put on some kind of show. You know, I'm not the world champion, like I said, so I'm just going to do what I got. So I think the people, for sure, have been grounding and important for me. And then I think the other big one is that, you know, how trees have got, they can't move, so they got to take whatever is there, make the best of it. And everybody's got pruning wounds. Everybody's got wound wood of a different sort. You know, some people have had to live life on the edge. Some people have, develop all that, reactionary wood to get through whatever. Some people have had periods of retrenchment where you're kind of down and out for the count, and you got to lie in the mud for a little bit.
Yeah.
But you just keep growing, and whatever you got, that's what you got. Like, it's who you are, and
Yeah.
there you are.
I like that answer. It's a good way of putting it. That's why I like asking people, because it always helps me understand myself. Thank you for that. I think I think more of it after a difficult time period. Like I find more connections in retrospect. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I don't know that I think of it at the time, but like you mentioned Woundwood, for example, like I think what a great analogy, of how, to create, you're injured, you're wounded, you're weakened in an area that you need support, and you produce wood to strengthen you as strong as you were before, with wood that's actually stronger than normal wood, right? Like, and then when you no longer sense that as a defect any longer, the wound wood stops being produced. Like, what an interesting analogy for humans, like I think of myself and stuff I've gone through, like, and I could identify wounds, emotional wounds or spiritual wounds that, that are almost sealed, they're not, but they're
Yeah,
maybe not producing, there's wound wood there, but it's not making new wound wood anymore,
yeah, yeah.
because they've been there long enough, and I've actually adapted from it, and didn't fail.
Right,
I didn't
right.
break, didn't lose that limb, or but it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
And I think having that understanding of trees helps with that. That when you understand how trees do that, then it's easy to make those analogies, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it is pretty cool. And that's one of my
yeah.
favorites is Woundwood. And the first time my brain was directed in this way was listening to John Gathright talk when he became president of ISA, and he was describing Treehab, the
Rehab.
thing he developed. Yeah, and one of the things that he talked about, and I don't know if it was in that talk, but I've heard him talk about, was that uh, he had individuals that had sustained significant trauma. They would do a tree walk, like go just in the woods, and they would find a tree that described them, and they could talk about themselves
Wow,
by referring to the tree. So a tree was bent
wow,
and broken and then
wow,
twisted. Someone could describe, like, I'm like this tree because, and they couldn't talk about themselves, but they could
right,
talk about themselves as if this, like this tree, and why they're like this tree, which I found fascinating,
wow.
you know?
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep, that one.
It's
Hmm.
cool. For whatever reason, it struck a chord in me, and I always remembered that. And that's, I think of it quite often. And I generally ask at least once in the podcast someone this question about if they've drawn those sorts of parallels. So thanks.
Huh.
And I think I've asked Tony a few times too. Tony's listened to it. It's quite fun, and we really enjoy the people being willing to share, because it's a little bit personal, and
Yeah.
sometimes a lot of it personal. But um, if there's someone out there, like struggling with where they're at, or how do they find their cabin in the woods and become driftless,
Mm.
like, do you have any thing you would say to someone, like, that you would advise them, or guide them, or in an esoteric, non-personal way that you could share something?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously you can't ask it
Yeah.
directly, but I'm sitting there thinking,
Right.
people listening to this,
Yeah.
we've never gone quite this far in this direction, and I'm wondering if there's a
Yeah.
way we can leave people with something.
Uh, well, my first off the cuff is, go get yourself a horse.
Yeah, well,
But that could put you in the into the red, so don't do that. Um, Yeah, borrow a horse. And incidentally, there are workshops, recovery, and also,
Yeah.
Personal growth workshops that do the same thing as Treehab
Yeah.
with horses.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm aware.
Um, uh, I think, I think the thing is to get quiet, whatever that means for you. Some people, it might be while you're running on a treadmill or you hit that high, runner's high. Um, your body's occupied, so it frees your mind. So it could be that, or it could be straight up meditation, although I'll admit for me, I'm not a good meditator. uh, or for me, what I do is get someplace quiet, and that's usually by a running stream in the woods or
Mhm.
straight up in the woods where
Yeah.
where you can smell the earth, and that's my favorite spot to be in, and just sort of strip away the outer stuff. So if you had a chance to let like incidental things, unimportant things just fall away, pretend, even if you have to, that incidental things and unimportant things can just fall away, and get to the core of whatever it is. Like, does this job feel like I'm compromising myself? um, why am I doing this job?
Mhm.
Why am I not doing this thing that I love? Um, and you got to be real about it. Sometimes you might say, I have to do this job for 2 more years, and then I'm going to exit.
Mhm.
But just let that stuff strip away. And if you got to go to a church, some people that works in a church. But I think it's being more, for me, in touch with, say, uh, like the indigenous peoples. I feel a lot more resonance with
Mm.
that sort of spirituality and
Mhm.
nature, and be quiet and watch birds and watch small critters, and
Mhm.
watch how things change, and see your part in it, and learn from that flow.
Mhm.
And sort of the important things, they tend to rise to the top if you strip it all away and say, what now?
So when you find that place by the river, which you probably are there right now, you could easily go there and think of it.
Yeah.
What do you what like how long would you sit there for, and what do you do?
Oh, yeah. Well, I am very fortunate in that I've got some woods
Yeah,
out back.
I figured.
Uh, one of my goals for the upcoming year is, we've lost a lot of trees from different events, and so I'm making a little horse pasture back there. Not full time because it's not big enough, but I'm hoping to get my horses there on a 2 week here, 2 week there.
Yeah.
So I just go out back, um, and it's
So you sit on a
quiet
log? Do
enough.
you sit on the grass? Do you?
I no, I usually, there's a kind of a trail walk, and then I go up through a ravine area, and I planted some white cedars,
Oh.
so I usually check on those. The ferny areas, cut out the barberry if there's anything, or stuff like that. But I'm also very fortunate in that, uh, we've got a porch out back there, so a lot of times I start the day. I call it the bird porch. So we
Ah,
go out on the bird porch and have coffee, and it just,
just sit and have
yeah,
a
it's just
coffee,
that
listening to the
slowing
birds.
down. Yeah,
Sit and
watching
have
the
a coffee,
birds.
listening to the birds. Do you
Yeah,
have do you
and
have
there's a
do you have
lot.
do you have media on, or you just sitting there?
No media.
No, no.
Usually I don't have my phone. Yeah. I got 2 dogs and my lovely partner.
Yeah.
That's enough.
So you it sounds to me like you're meditating.
Yes, I guess so.
Right? Like I've so often I find that people's definitions get in the way of what they're actually doing. Like
Yeah,
that's all it really is. It's just stopping and taking time to
yeah,
just be non-distracted and just with whatever. It could be walking. It could be like you know, it, you know, and I don't think you're far off by saying recommending like get a horse. It's like find your horse. Like that can be a
Mm,
metaphor, right? Like it might be something else for other people, but it's finding their horse, right? It's finding.
yeah.
So and like, what does a horse, or what does that bring to you when you're in that element connecting? Getting them close, getting I'm assuming you use a bridle. I don't know what kind of bit you use, but like, do you use a bridle, or do you use a bit, or do you just use just a halter?
Um, I a lot of the times just a rope halter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're
But
just neck
my
reined.
yeah, my Appaloosa is young. He's 5, and so he's had a saddle on, and but he's never been ridden yet.
Okay. Okay.
And so he's had a luxury of starting with this energy work.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, what your horse? The thing about horses that they do for me is, and I think the trees do this too, is even if you're even if you're in a removal situation, is you have to be present. You
Yeah.
have to be in that moment, and you cannot afford to not be paying attention if something goes pear shaped with the horses because they're big and they get scared easily and they can step on you.
So can trees.
And so can trees. So, and I love being in the moment. I love that.
Well, it's one of the keys, right? It's one of the key elements of, I think even as far as tree accidents and all that, I think when you lose sight, anytime you're doing something where you lose sight of that, where you where you're in a different moment while you're in another one, and you out of
Yeah,
having enough routine or ability to be able to do that, where you forget, like Tony, you talk about this, where in the middle of doing something you realize that you've finished a task and you don't remember doing it.
yeah,
It's like maybe there's time to think about something's going on here, right? Like that your mind isn't there, right? You're actually somewhere else, and if you can, when you're in tune or in alignment, it's much easier for your mind to stay there. And if you find yourself out of that on a regular basis, you're probably not in the right spot, basically.
yeah, yeah.
Right?
And the thing about that is it goes for every single thing. So
Yep.
if you're a welder and you're not paying attention to your welds, they won't be good.
Yep.
And it's the same thing if you're cooking, super creative and you forget the baking soda, or, whatever. It just won't be right.
Nope.
What's your secret ingredient?
Yep.
Secret ingredient is that you're present.
Yep.
You're teaching someone. It's yeah.
And I think that has to
Yeah.
do with energy flow.
Yeah.
Because the energy that's what makes the pie taste different. That's what makes grandma's pie
Mm,
different than store-bought pie, right? It's the energy it's the a dash of love, or a pound of love,
yeah.
I had a friend one of our office staff, her husband, like he's adamant how when it comes to tree planting, like if you plant the tree with love, it has a way better chance of survival. Like he's 100%, just doesn't even mince words about it, right? The attitude in
Sure.
which you do it, which applies to
Yeah.
everything, right?
It does. It applies to everything.
Mhm.
And here's something to think about when we've got that way of being, that intention, who knows what signals our brain is sending to our body that actually shows up in actions. If you're painting and you say to your body, stay in the line and let it flow, your body will do it. Just let it go to have it,
And
have
you
it work
talked
out.
about being in tune earlier, and that's all about, the energy being in alignment, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, Tony? You tuned in?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I know you are. I would just,
I think that there's a lot to be said for building a small routine or a process for yourself on a daily basis. If you're looking for ways to, if you're at that point where it's like, how the fuck do I get where I want to go? Um, to take that time on the bird porch, like that small routine or that cup of coffee, and to build it. And it doesn't have to be much. What I've found in my experience is that you start small. Maybe it's 5 minutes a day, maybe it's 30 seconds a day. I don't know, but then it will increase. Um, and you'll find more and more time to do it. Like about 5, 6 years ago, I decided to take up playing guitar again to kind of keep my fingers moving before they totally froze into handsaw shape. And I told myself, you know what, I'm going to practice 5 minutes a day. That's it. That's what I'm committing to, 5 minutes a day. And then life happens. I'm never going to miss 2 days in a row. Those were my only rules I gave myself. 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes of practice, never going to miss 2 days in a row. And I stuck with that. And what I found is that it was usually way more than 5 minutes. And I very rarely missed more than 2 days in a row. So I think you can do small things like that. And then for me, what's been helpful is when things do go sideways is to have a good mantra or something that you can kind of refer to. And for me, it was given to me by my sister-in-law, who's also a good friend. And I guess, well, she is a counselor. But she, that taught me basically, it's like when things go weird, I tend to say it's not personal. I'm not perfect. And this is not permanent. And to have something like that, for me, mantras like that are little guideposts, right? They're a road sign for when you're like, oh shit, how did I get here? And how do I get back? Oh, there it is. Right. There's the sign I was looking for. So having those things I have found in my journey to be very helpful.
You use the term mantra. What exact, is the words the mantra? Is it the action? Is it both? Like what?
Well, the classic definition of mantra is something that you repeat again and again to kind of get into that flow state, to occupy the conscious part of your mind, so the subconscious.
Okay.
In my experience, I like them a little bit more as mantras are just like those things those small sayings, those little pieces that you can use to remind yourself of what you're looking for, what you're after, where you're going. The big one from Trainer, how you do anything is how you do everything. I adopted pretty early after 2008 because that reminded me that I'm only responsible to myself. And I'll use that one to this day. The one, not personal, not perfect, not permanent, is just to remind, that's to remind me that, you know what, life doesn't, it goes back to, I don't believe in a life balance. I think to say your life is balanced is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because just because I had 10 good days, does that mean I have to have 10 bad days? What the fuck? Right? I think your life should be in rhythm, right? I think it should have a flow and a harmony to it. And the not perfect, not permanent, reminds me that, sometimes it's going to be terrible and bad.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. Right?
Yeah.
Just don't stay there too long, right? Because it's not personal.
Not only is it okay, okay, but it's necessary.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Like diamonds they go through a lot, right?
Yeah.
If they didn't like the heat, they would never be a diamond. Right? If they didn't like the pressure, they'd never be a diamond, right?
True.
I know it's a rude analogy, but there's a lot of truth in it, right? Like, and something I've learned recently too is embracing that, and not only, and there's another part to that I'm only recently grasping, and I'm not and not to have expectation that the hard times will result in a equal and opposite better time. But there'll be a change. There will be a change, and it may not be permanent, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be so glorious and better necessarily, but it'll be different. And that's okay too, because the refinement process, or whatever you want to call it, but what we do have is authorship in the time to choose our attitude throughout it. Right. And that does make a difference in whatever the outcome is. And ironically, you end up finding positivity in something that may not even be that positive. Or you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense, but I realized I would expect something to get a lot better because it was so hard before. And realizing that's not a fair expectation to have. It's not just because doesn't mean that. That makes sense. And accepting that too.
Yep. Nobody gets out of here alive.
Yeah. I found the key to eternal life. Then you'd realize, wow, that isn't really that great.
Yeah, right.
and the reason would be is because you'd be stuck in this form and you would limit the life of the energy moving on into the
Yeah.
next phase of, because if very likely there's another. I like to think of life as a sleigh ride, toboggan ride. And
Yeah.
we're all standing at the top of the hill, and that's us in the celestial realm, like heaven, let's say. And then it's your turn to go. It's like what, and boom, and you're flying down the hill, and you're like, and you forget all about the top, the heaven, and you're just barreling down. Sometimes some people wipe out halfway. Some people slide slowly right to the very end, but eventually you end up back at the top, looking down and going, "Whoa!" and realizing it was just a sleigh ride. Holy crap! And the
Yeah.
whole time you're thinking that you get lost in thinking this is it. This is all there is. What's going to happen after? You know, it's like, wait a minute. Oh, I forgot. It was just a sleigh run.
Yeah.
Giving it back to 8 months of winter will do that to you, I guess.
I hear that. Yeah.
I heard another one that was funny, of twins in the womb discussing, like, they feel like something's going to change and it's births happening, right? And the other one's going, I don't think that this is it. Like, we don't go anywhere from here. This is like, why would we want to leave here, right? And they're like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure there's somewhere else. Like, no, man, this is all there is. This is as good as we got everything we need here. Why would you want to? No, wait, nope, not going, right? And just a different view of change.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we choose, and sometimes it chooses us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we're getting near the end, and we are, but I'm really curious about how you're going to connect with your Appaloosa, like how that journey is going to go, or if that is even part of your
Ooh.
journey, like to
Yeah.
ultimately ride him, her, or
Yeah.
him, or to
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
okay. So how are you going to, like, what I'm gathering is you're going to do that in a different energy. You're not going to break them. You're going to connect with them.
No. Yeah. No. And so the Tao of Horsemanship, that's Caroline's company, right?
Wow.
And so she relies heavily on your alignment, your energy, but also routine, just like
Yeah.
meditation, just like ritual of religion. These things are not far
No,
apart.
no.
Um, but also the feel and timing is really big, and that's the same thing with teaching. Is so I've been the person training this horse. I got him when he was about 7 or 8 months old.
Wow.
And so we've done a lot of in-hand exercises, basic ground manners, but he he is his own horse, so his nature comes through, and I have to adjust. So I don't treat him quite the same way as I treat my older chestnut mare. She's spirited. She's got her own opinions about things. This guy, Handy is his name. He's a gelding. He's got his own opinions, but he's also the sweetest. Like, he's very thoughtful. He's a little bit. He's got to be convinced. He's a little tricky, but he is a people person. So he wants to be there. So there's no right answer. There's just the feel and the timing, and that's when you're in a relationship with someone too. You might come downstairs and you feel something's off with them. Either I'm going to tread lightly or I'm going to go right in and say, I'm here. And that feel and timing it's teachable, I think, but not everyone is as good. And so that's what I'm doing with Handy. And I have not been on him yet. I hope and I suspect that when that time comes, he won't care at all. Yeah. We'll see. I'll still wear a helmet.
How tall is he? Like 10 hand?
He's about no, he's 5. He's probably about 14.3
Ooh,
now.
wow.
Yeah, he's not going to be. I don't know if he'll hit 15. I think last time measured him, he was 14.3. He'll be a little bit on the smaller quarter horse size.
Yeah.
So
Usually
above a
they're-
pony, but not huge horse. Yeah, he's a cool dude. He's got a lot of personality.
I haven't met a horse that doesn't really. Honestly, I haven't.
Yeah,
Well, especially when
I
you
got him when I got him when I was 50, and if he lives till 30, then when I'm 80, I can tap out. That'll be it.
Yeah,
That's the
that
plan.
there is that. There's a gentleman I know. Well, he just got rid of, like, sold his last horses. He, think he's 80 something, 80, 83, and he was actively riding, and it was not a year ago, but probably last summer, almost a year ago. Uh, the horse spooked for something happened, but it knocked him over, and like it really hurt his shoulder, and he couldn't, and he just realized, I'm probably just a little too old to keep doing this. Like, you can't take a fall really, right? And
Yeah.
he was limping around and really nursed his shoulder. And then I asked him about his horse. He's like, I just sold the last one. He said, I really,
Yeah.
and it was a transition, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. It's well, I guess, like tree climbing, there comes a point. I mean, I don't know many 80-year-olds that are horking their way up a tree in a rope, right? But I'm sure now that being said, there's probably somebody out there doing it.
Yeah, probably.
Um,
Yeah.
Eventually, all things come to somewhat of an end, right? Or a transition.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the oldest tree climber it was? I was doing a course a couple of weeks ago, and one of the students suggested that was the oldest. Certainly, was the oldest in the class, and asked me, "Am I one of your oldest students?" And I was, because he was 69, I think. And I said, I don't know. That's a good question. Like, what's the oldest student I've had in a class? We've had, I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
Maybe he was.
I've had mid 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They weren't arborists. They were
Yeah.
homeowners that wanted to explore tree climbing.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they were actively climbing. They weren't doing it for a living, but they were actively climbing their own trees and then doing stuff for the neighbors.
Yeah. I think we've had some women in their 70s as well at the Women's Tree Climbing Workshop. Yeah. We've had a pair of friends. They'd been friends forever. And once a year they would do something, adventurous. And that was their thing. And we've had mother-daughter pairs.
Well, 70 is the new 50, right?
I hope so.
I think when you turn 90, you say that. Like, you say 90 is the new 70.
Yeah. If you're going to be like a tree, you're like, well, I'm putting on very little growth this year, but I got vigor.
Yeah. And I got lots of girth.
The rings are thin, but they go the whole way around. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, Tony, is there anything you want to ask in closing? Something you'll go, oh, I wish I would have asked her.
No, I think I found it to be a very stimulating conversation.
Yeah, it was fun.
Likewise.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah,
Excellent.